Welcome back, folks. Another day, another elitist Hollywood meltdown over reality refusing to bend to the left's every whim. We're living in an era where the people who screamed democracy dies in darkness now lose their minds when democracy doesn't go their way. The hysteria is reaching new heights, with Hollywood's finest acting like basic laws of governance are some apocalyptic conspiracy. And when all else fails, they turn to their favorite pastime, emotional theatrics, packaged as deep political insight. Tonight's case study, Natasha Lyonne unraveling at the SAG Awards over the horror of a world where Republicans actually follow through with their promises.
Oh, Trump. Wow, what a guy. Yes, well, when the orange drips, it's very weird to have, like, a showbiz guy in charge is surreal. I mean, because, well, I'm actually pretty horrified by how strategic and effective this whole thing has been, and I think there's a real disconnect in all of the noise around, like, the individuals that are going to be really taking the hits on a individual, like a human basis, in the trans community, gay community, black community, women. I hate violence so much, and I just think that's the part of it. Like, this country's always had, insanity, but to really have like a death toll and be willing to do that is a pill too great for me to swallow. Like, beyond the sort of dialectic around oligarchs and whatever else, it's like when I think of the kids, or like the 12-year-old girl that can't get an abortion or something, or it's that's what really like rips me apart.
Oh, look, another Hollywood meltdown, this time from Natasha Lyonne, serving up a rambling monologue that sounds like it was ripped from a fever dream written by a gender studies major on their third edible. Let's break this down because, folks, we're drowning in nonsense, and someone's got to throw a life raft. First, she kicks things off with the whole Trump is a showbiz guy shtick, because apparently being a reality star disqualifies you from politics. Weird, because I don't remember Democrats foaming at the mouth when they elected a community organizer whose biggest gig before the presidency was a Netflix deal. But Trump, he is unacceptable. Why? Because unlike the Bush-era Republicans who existed to be polite losers, Trump actually wins. And that's the real crime here. Conservatives dared to play the long game and didn't roll over like they were supposed to. Then we get hit with the I hate violence part, which is rich coming from someone championing abortion like it's a loyalty program at Planned Parenthood. She's ranting about a death toll as if that's the biggest tragedy, while casually advocating for something that racks up more casualties than every war America's ever fought combined. But sure, let's pretend stopping abortion is a real crime against humanity. Nothing says compassion like fighting for the right to kill babies while crying about imaginary fascism. And of course, she goes for the emotional nuke, the 12-year-old girl who supposedly can't get an abortion because, when in doubt, drag a hypothetical child into the argument and hope nobody asks for details. Here's what they don't tell you. Pregnancies at that age are statistically microscopic, and when they do happen, they're almost always the result of abuse. And guess what? The states banning elective abortion already make exceptions for cases like that. But addressing the actual problem, predators exploiting minors, would require effort. And we all know the left prefers quick, easy solutions, like, say, a clinic appointment and a pamphlet. Also, I think it's important to note that they're down in Petalwood saying this. So perhaps they have an interest in protecting the abusers. Anyway, in the end, we've got another unhinged Hollywood rant, long on hysteria, short on facts, and absolutely dripping with irony. A multimillionaire actress hyperventilating about oppression while living in a gated mansion, clutching her pearls over strategy like she just discovered Republicans are allowed to have game plans too. It's the same tired formula: cry, play victim, and hope nobody notices that the only thing actually being ripped apart here is our argument. And speaking of retards, next up we have Kamala Harris, who said this while visiting the Pacific Palisades, one of the areas most affected by the LA fires.
Goes through your mind when you see this? You're here, you're now seeing it up close.
It's not only seeing it, Alex, you can smell it. You can feel it, right? So it's seeing it with our eyes, and many people have seen it. You all are covering it. But to literally be on the ground here, you can smell the smoke that was here. You can feel the toxicity, frankly, of the environment. You can feel the energy of all of the folks who are still here on the ground.
Kamala Harris, folks, the human etch-a-sketch of public speaking. Shake her up and you might just get a coherent thought. But most of the time, it's just verbal spaghetti with extra stuttering for effect. So here she is, standing in front of a literal destruction. Asked a simple question about the LA fires, and what's her response? You can see it. You can smell it. You can feel it. Amazing. We sent a former vice president to a disaster zone, and all we got was a preschool level sensory lesson. Next time, maybe she'll tell us what color the flames are. But don't worry, it gets even better. She throws in some deep philosophical reflections about the toxicity of the air with a lot of pauses, because she probably heard from Obama that if she pauses a lot, she thinks it makes her sound smart. Yeah, Kamala, no shit that when things burn, they look and smell bad. I mean, just imagine this, folks, losing her home in a wildfire and tuning in to hear the former vice president and presidential candidate deliver this poetic masterpiece. Yeah, you can see the fire and you can smell the fire and the fire, yeah, you can feel it. Thanks, Kamala. So helpful. Now let's talk about what she conveniently didn't say. Wildfires in California aren't just acts of nature. They're the result of decades of leftist environmental policies that turned the state into a giant matchbox. But instead of addressing actual causes like the refusal to clear dead brush or the fact that California's power grid is held together with duct tape and a prayer, she just stands there, narrating reality like a low-budget David Attenborough. And the best part, the people who keep electing these clowns will blame climate change, as if the problem isn't their own government turning the state into one big gender-neutral bonfire. And then there's the grand finale. You can feel the energy of the folks still here on the ground. What does that even mean? Is she absorbing their suffering like some kind of political dementor? These people have lost their homes, and Kamala is treating it like a damn Coachella vibe check. The only energy I feel is the overwhelming urge to get a real adult in charge. Because when disaster strikes, the last thing anyone needs is a human fortune cookie throwing out random words and hoping they land. So in the end, we've got another classic Kamala moment: zero leadership, zero solutions, and enough empty words to fill a college diversity seminar. But hey, at least she finally said something that made sense. Can't wait until the Democrats try to run her as governor. I'm sure it's going to be an absolute disaster. And moving the retard train right along, Joy Reid is just coping very poorly that her show is canceled on MSNBC. In fact, she's coping so poorly that the video that you're watching, playing right here, which we're going to watch in a second, is Joy Reid having a literal mental breakdown, crying, tears and all, snot running down her nose because she was fired from MSNBC. Deservedly so, shall I add. Anyway, let's watch this.
I've been through every emotion from, anger, rage, disappointment, hurt, feeling that, guilt, that I let my team lose their jobs. But in the end, where I really land and where I've landed on today is just gratitude. Just pure gratitude. And
why are her eyes going opposite directions?
And gratitude, not just because people would take the time to get on a call like this, or to take care of me, but also that my show had value.
Joy Reid, ladies and gentlemen, the queen of racial paranoia and MSNBC's longest-running failed experiment, has officially been shown the door, and her meltdown is everything you'd hope for. She's been through every emotion, she says: anger, rage, disappointment, guilt, basically the 5 stages of grief, but instead of acceptance, she lands on gratitude. Because when you're a professional victim, losing your job is just another opportunity for self-pity and a book deal. Now, let's be honest. Joy wasn't fired because she was too radical, too fearless, or too truth to power. No. She got axed because even MSNBC realized that screaming everything is racist on a loop is only entertaining for so long before people start reaching for the remote. Her show is like watching a live therapy session for someone processing childhood trauma that never actually happened. And now, in classic narcissist fashion, she makes it sound like she's being exiled for being too valuable. I'm sorry, lady. This isn't McCarthyism. You just had the ratings of a public access cooking show. Then comes the fake guilt trip. I let my team lose their jobs. Oh, please. That's like an arsonist feeling bad that the fire department had to work overtime. Your team didn't lose their jobs because of some noble sacrifice, Joy. They lost them because you spent years running a one-woman race war telethon that even MSNBC's insomniacs couldn't sit through anymore. Turns out even professional fear-mongering has a shelf life. Who knew? And of course she talks gratitude, because when leftists get fired, they don't fail, they just evolve. She'll probably spin this into a new book, canceled for telling the truth, which will be read exclusively by white liberals trying to prove they aren't racist. Meanwhile, the rest of us will be celebrating the fact that we won't have to endure another unhinged monologue about how voting Republican is a gateway drug to burning crosses. Rest in peace, Joy Reid's career. You won't be missed. But wait, there's always more tears with the leftists.
And, I'm a church girl too. And those are the things that I was taught were of God. And so I'm not sorry. I'm just proud of my show. I'm proud of my little team. The little team that could, I told them today, they were the Avengers. They were this little diverse team who we constructed deliberately to represent every type of person in this country, every religion, every faith, every race, every region, every sensibility, every sexual orientation. We said we were intentional. I was very intentional in building my team.
Joy Reid is apparently the first person in history to get fired from MSNBC and immediately declare herself a martyr for God. That's right. In her latest Meltdown, she's not just a disgraced TV host, she's a divine warrior, bravely spreading the gospel of race baiting and conspiracy theories before her corporate crucifixion. I'm not sorry, she declares. Yeah, Joy, neither is your audience for not watching your show. Now let's talk about this sudden religious revival. For years, she's pushed nonstop hysteria, claiming Republicans were plotting to bring back slavery, calling everyone with a different opinion a bigot, and shrieking about democracy collapsing every time a GOP candidate won an election. But now it turns out her deranged MSNBC rants were actually of God. Funny, because I don't remember the Bible having a verse about lying through your teeth on national television. Blessed are the race hustlers, for they shall inherit a book deal. Nope, don't think that's in there. Just taking a wild guess. Then she hits us with the Avengers analogy. Joy, if your team was the Avengers, your show wouldn't have been snapped out of existence faster than CNN Plus. And we all saw how that went. But let's unpack this diversity brag, because nothing says true inclusion like hiring people based on skin color, religion, and sexual orientation instead of, merit and competence. Imagine walking into a burning building and hearing the fire chief say, well, we hired this team to be the most diverse in history. Can they put out fires? Hell no. But that's not the point. That was Joy's show, a flaming wreck that nobody wanted to see or save. But the real punchline here, nothing of value was lost. Finally, something we can all agree on. MSNBC losing Joy Reid is like a grocery store getting rid of all the expired milk. Sure, it technically existed, but no one was buying it. And the best part, she actually thinks she's too good for cable news. Like she wasn't just another talking head reading pre-approved narratives between ad breaks for Pfizer. But don't worry, she'll be fine. Probably launch a podcast, slap her face on a book cover, and continue selling professional victimhood to white liberal women who need a new reason to feel guilty. At the end of the day, Joy Reid wasn't fired because she was too righteous, too radical, or too fearless. She was fired because nobody watched Joy Reid's show. Not even MSNBC viewers. People who tolerate a network that still pretends Liz Cheney has an audience or is any sort of morally virtuous person. And yet, here she is, acting like the real tragedy isn't her career going up in flames, it's that we didn't appreciate her enough. Joy, we noticed you. That was the problem. But from the looks of it, it doesn't seem as though Joy Reid is going to be the only one to go down with the ship, because Rachel Maddow had her 2 cents to throw in.
An even bigger programming change is at 7 p.m., 7 p.m. Eastern, where Joy Reid's show, The Readout, ended tonight. And Joy is not taking a different job in the network. She is leaving the network altogether. And that is very, very, very hard to take. I am 51 years old. I have been gainfully employed since I was 12. And I have had so many different kinds of jobs, you wouldn't believe me if I told you. But in all of the jobs I have had, in all of the years I have been alive, there is no colleague for whom I have had more affection and more respect than Joy Reid. I love everything about her. I have learned so much from her. I have so much more to learn from her. I do not want to lose her as a colleague here at MSNBC. And personally, I think it is a bad mistake to let her walk out the door. It is not my call, and I understand that, but that's what I think. I will tell you, it is also unnerving to see that on a network where we've got two non-white hosts in primetime. Both of our non-white hosts in primetime are losing their shows, as is Katie Fang on the weekend. And that feels worse than bad, no matter who replaces them. That feels indefensible. And I do not defend it.
Yes, folks, Rachel Maddow is throwing a full-blown tantrum because MSNBC finally realized Joy Reid is terrible at her job. And in classic MSNBC fashion, rather than even considering that Joy's show was an unwatchable dumpster fire, Maddow jumps straight to racism. Yes, folks, MSNBC, the network that spent the last decade foaming at the mouth about diversity, equity, and inclusion, is now apparently a hotbed of white supremacy because they finally put one of their worst hosts out of their misery. Let's break this down. Maddow doesn't mention why Joy Reid got fired. No talk of ratings, no talk of audience engagement, no mention of the fact that Joy's entire career was built on race baiting, conspiracy theories, and screaming about Trump like she was having a Vietnam flashback. Nope. It's just Joy is black, Joy got fired, therefore MSNBC is basically the Klan with a teleprompter. Incredible journalism, Rachel. Really Pulitzer-worthy stuff. Then we get this over-the-top emotional meltdown. There is no colleague for whom I have had more affection and more respect. Maddow, blink twice if Joy is holding you hostage, because let's be real, you're talking about a woman who accused Republicans of plotting to reinstate Jim Crow laws, a woman whose entire brand was screeching racist at anyone who disagreed with her, a woman who literally forgot that she wrote homophobic blog posts and then blamed time-traveling hackers when she got caught. And this is your greatest colleague of all time? Either MSNBC is really scraping the bottom of the talent pool, or Maddow has a fetish for professional grifters. And then, of course, we get the diversity math. Maddow is devastated that MSNBC only had 2 non-white hosts in primetime, and now they're both gone. The horror. But here's the thing. Viewers don't care about racial quotas. They care about whether the show is good. MSNBC could hire a purple, gender-fluid, two-spirit alien from Neptune, and if the show sucked, it would still get canceled. That's how this works. Got to remind the lefties that business is business. So if Joy Reid was a ratings monster, she'd still have a show. But she wasn't. Her entire audience consisted of 3 Twitter activists and a New York Times intern taking notes for the next America is Doomed op-ed. And the real punchline, it was indefensible, and I do not defend it. Wow, Rachel, so brave. I'm sure MSNBC will think long and hard about your passionate speech after they continue cashing ad revenue from pharmaceutical companies. If Maddow really believed MSNBC was racist, she could always, quit. But she won't, because, spoiler alert, this has nothing to do with racism and everything to do with the left's inability to accept reality. Joy Reid was bad at her job. MSNBC finally noticed, and Rachel Maddow is now stuck pretending this is the civil rights movement because acknowledging the truth would quite literally break her brain. So in the end, MSNBC is not racist. They're just done pretending that Joy Reid was anything but a liability. And Rachel Maddow, she's just mad that her network did what it should have done years ago. Now, if you thought that was bad, Don Lemon had a very unusual and unhinged reaction to Megyn Kelly absolutely roasting Joy Reid for losing her job.
Megyn Kelly calls out this person. So this is what Megyn Kelly said about Joy Reid, right? And remember, Joy Reid is a woman. Megyn Kelly is a woman. She's supposed to be all about women and supports women. Okay, so this is what she said. Remember when Joy Reid laughingly mocked white women tears as pathetic and offensive to her? Who's crying now, Joy? Good riddance to the absolute worst person on television. And shame on NBC for letting it go on this long. And she has she is an axe to grind when it comes to MSNBC. And also, she's racist, right? It's just, I'm going to give you the evidence. Supposedly learned from it and then spent every day after apologizing for it and being fired for it, then spent every day proving the point that she is a racist and not very supportive of women. If you look, all you have to do, the evidence is in her Google search. And what she says about women, how she calls them out all the time. The worst person. No, Megyn Kelly, the worst person on television was fired from NBC in the Today Show a few years ago, and that's Megyn Kelly. That's the worst person who's not on television anymore.
How's this guy this dumb?
Is you. So let me just say to Megyn Kelly, in my 30-some years as a journalist and my 50-some years as a person of color, go fuck yourself. Okay.
Wow. Don Lemon is back and he is mad. Again, this time he's throwing a tantrum over Megyn Kelly calling out Joy Reid. Don Lemon is back and he is mad. Again. This time he's throwing a tantrum over Megyn Kelly, daring to call out Joy Reid for what she actually is, a race-baiting, hypocritical grifter who should have been booted from MSNBC years ago. But instead of addressing anything Kelly actually said, Don, in classic Lemon fashion, goes straight for the emotional meltdown, peppered with bad logic, zero self-awareness, and of course, a completely unnecessary racial victim card. Now let's start with the foundation of his argument. Megyn Kelly is a woman, Joy Reid is a woman, so Megyn should automatically support her. This is peak leftist identity politics, where your chromosomes are supposed to dictate your beliefs, and the second you step out of line, you're a traitor. Newsflash, Don, supporting women doesn't mean blindly defending every terrible woman just because she's a woman. That's not feminism, that's tribalism. And by this logic, Joy Reid should have been Megyn's biggest cheerleader when she got booted from NBC. But funny how that didn't happen. Then we get the real issue. Megyn Kelly dared to point out that Joy Reid mocked white women tears for years, only to now be sobbing over her own downfall. And instead of addressing this obvious hypocrisy, Don's counter-argument is screaming about Megyn Kelly being the worst person on TV. Yes, the classic ignore the point and launch a personal attack strategy. What's next? Calling her Miss Poopyhead? And let's talk about the absolute lack of self-awareness here. Don Lemon calling anyone the worst person on television is like Nickelback accusing another band of being generic. This is the same guy who got himself fired from CNN for being insufferable, sexist, and completely incapable of handling a debate without throwing a fit. This is the same guy who literally asked if a missing plane got sucked into a black hole. The same guy who declared that white men were the biggest terror threat in America while cashing checks from a network that spent years platforming actual race hustlers. But the best part, the grand finale, the big brain, mature, professional journalist comeback. Go F yourself. This man spent 30 years as a journalist, and this is the best he can come up with. No logic, no counterpoints, just pure seething bitterness over the fact that Megyn Kelly is successful while he's being reduced to ranting on the internet like a washed-up Twitter activist. At the end of the day, Don Lemon isn't mad because Megyn Kelly was unfair. He's mad because she was right. Joy Reid was the worst person on TV. MSNBC did let it go on way too long, and Don, well, he's just mad that no one's ever cared this much about his own firing. At the end of the day, what we're watching isn't just another media meltdown. It's a masterclass in how the left operates when their own lose power. The same people who preach about accountability, merit, and protecting democracy suddenly abandon all of it when one of their own gets the axe. Is it really about justice or just tribal loyalty? How many times do we have to watch them rewrite the rules, shift the goalposts, and cry oppression the moment they face the same scrutiny they demand for everyone else? These aren't arguments. They're tantrums dressed up as moral authority. And the question is, how much longer are people going to fall for it? Because at some point, the game is set up. The manufactured outrage, the victim posturing, the relentless gaslighting, it only works if we keep pretending it's serious. Maybe it's time we stop. Anyway, you tell me what you think in the comments down below. Hope you have a terrific day.